Greetings, friends. The mask is not based on science. Fauci and the WHO just a few months ago were saying it didn't matter if you wear a mask at all. It's not going to make much of a difference in preventing you from getting a disease. And don't tell me, oh, you have to wear a mask to prevent other people from being infected. Unless you're going into a long-term care home or some place where you're dealing with severely unhealthy people, there is no logical reason to wear a mask, because why? Then you should wear a mask every day of every year, always, because there's always common flus, there's always common colds, there's always viruses, people are always getting sick. So by that logic, you should always be wearing a mask everywhere, for everyone, at all times. It makes no sense. Now, you may still wear a mask if you're afraid of getting a disease, and that's fine. That's your own decision. And there are many other places where we need to wear masks, like maybe when you're sanding drywall, or when there's a lot of particulate matter in the air, like in certain situations, certain work environments, you may have to wear a mask, and that's understandable. But it's an entirely different thing to tell the public at large, especially when they are buying food, which they need to survive, that they must wear this mask. That's an entirely different matter. Now, commenting on this incident with the Costco employee who told this man somewhere in the US that he has to be wearing a mask in Costco. Somehow the guy got in and was able to fill up his shopping cart before they got to him. And then the customer didn't handle it very well. He was kind of not very likable. And the employee was even less likable. So I don't have much respect for either of these guys. I'm just sort of commenting on the reaction and what people who are defending the mask policy have to say. And their two main responses was that, number one, Costco telling customers to have a mask on or you don't get any service is the same as no shirt, no shoes, no service. Fair enough. And second of all, they say that if you don't like the service here and you don't want to wear a mask, then take your business somewhere else. Go somewhere else. So let's address the first point, that this is exactly like no shoes, no shirt, no service. It may. It's not clear where this originated, but from what I looked online, it seems to have originated in the 60s and the 70s as a reaction to the counterculture, because a lot of the hippies were shoeless and shirtless. They also had long hair. The business owners tended not to be hippies, and they didn't like the hippies, and often the hippies didn't like them. And so making those regulations was a way of keeping out countercultural people from your business. So it doesn't have a very liberal beginning. It has a very conservative beginning to this no shirt, no shoes, no service policy. Keep that in mind, liberals. It probably came about, well, not all at once, but in a few decades. But it wasn't instituted from the top down. It seems to have been adopted by the business owners themselves. It was partly reacting to the civil rights movement and the legislation that came with it, which said that you cannot discriminate on the basis of race or religion or sex or a few other things. So they went to attire. Okay, we can discriminate on attire, and many other things too, like whether you are rowdy. Now, how exactly are you supposed to say whether a person is rowdy or not? Whether a person is being disruptive or not? Ultimately, a lot of it just comes down to the judgment of the owner of the store. And this came about at a time when there were less chain stores. There weren't these giant corporate chain. I mean, there were some, but it wasn't on the scale as today, where there were all these big box stores. It's true that each store can have their own policy, but I think you should be aware that it was not imposed all at once from the big corporate government machine, medium corporate government machine. It was not all imposed down in literally the space of a few weeks on the entire Western world, or at least certain many parts of the Western world. It came about in a shorter time, maybe not so long, some decades, this no shirt, no shoes service. It came with other, signs that were never necessary in the past because people were part of a more homogeneous culture in the past. These things were understood. Now, secondly, if you don't like the service here, if you don't like the no mask policy, go shop somewhere else. Oh, how nice, how nice. Well, maybe for the time being we can do that, but it's becoming more and more difficult in some places. What if all the big box stores institute a mask policy? Well, then you have to wear the mask. So your comment of, go shop somewhere else, it's a free market. Yeah, for how much longer can we do that? And is that even practical? What if the next supermarket is 5 miles away and you're not even sure if they have, you heard they have you don't need a mask there. I mean, that's not even acknowledging that all the small businesses are still closed down. And who are more likely to have the mask policy is the big box stores, who are more likely to be open. Oh, how convenient for you. You go shop at some other big box store that has the convenience to remain open during these times. I wonder why. Could it have to do with the fact that they're too big to fail? That they have a special relationship with the government? So now you put on that mask. And if you feel like it's demeaning you, well then tough. You got to put on that mask and demean yourself to eat. Refuse and starve. Yeah, starve. Now, this reminds me of the, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Hey, if you don't like the censorship here, it's a free market. These are private companies. Just go use some other social media website. It's a free market. Come on. Yeah, that's right. You see, the problem they neglect to admit, and this is the problem with, there is no free market. There never has been. There's only been a better approximation of one when you have a big middle class, which we don't have anymore. And what has happened is, what always happens generally is that once wealth starts to accumulate, once an economy develops, once you get more cities, you get more of a financial class, pretty soon, or sooner rather than later, the people with the money start buying off the politicians. And they actually use politics to get tax breaks and get more money. Not only to get tax breaks, but to get more markets. And then they can use their power to suppress small businesses. And they're doing this in a free market, right? Supposedly a free market. It's not really free. Free for them. No, just like with the grocery stores and the department stores, the only stores that are open, we're forced to go to these stores. They have more power over us. They can start laying down these restrictions on us. It's the same way with social media. There are no other viable alternatives right now to get your speech out there in the public realm. Of course, yes, there's BitChute and Minds and Spotify and all these other websites, but practically speaking, being forced off of YouTube or Twitter or Facebook is more or less the canceling of your free speech. Like, yes, you can go exist in some corner of the internet, and yes, maybe things will change in some years, but effectively, for the time being, you are silenced. So there is no free speech in this supposedly free market where you can just use different companies. Now, this doesn't mean I'm for centrally planned economies. This just means that I'm not one of those full believers in the free market. Some people were saying, well, yeah, you should take your business elsewhere. Show Costco that they had better treat their customers better because the customer is always right. But the customer is always right is a notion from an earlier time. Nowadays, they don't care because they can tell you to go F yourself and you still got to come back to them. It's like the Gillette commercial. Emasculating men, that Gillette commercial. Men shouldn't be men. Men shouldn't roughhouse. Men are just naturally rapists, and we need to keep each other in check. I mean, the fact that they could release that on the world market shows that they don't care. The customer is not always right. They don't care what you think because they have the market cornered. There's only a few other like brands that sell shaving equipment, and like for all I know they might be owned by Gillette anyways. No, it's a really stupid idea that conservatives got associated with the free market. No, the free market, that is a libertarian thing. Conservatives are supposed to be conserving the culture, conserving the nation, the people. And that can involve using some capitalism, so to speak, and some socialism, so to speak. It can use both to do that. It can use tariffs, it can take away tariffs. It depends on the context. But the goal is conserving the country, the people, the culture, the values, the traditions. Conserving it. That's why it's called conservative. Yes, the Conservative Party of Canada is not conservative. The National Post is not conservative. Yes, they're just using the name. Hasta luego, amigos.